Welcome, and greetings to all. I am Shenlong Pendragon, the Lore Master. So as always, a quick disclaimer. I don't own any of the images or the story in this video. The credit for these all belong to the original sources. So ladies and gentlemen, I know it's been a long time in the coming, and I know I promised a couple of you this video months ago, and I do apologise for the length of time it's taken me to get it up. I wanted to get it up a couple of weeks ago, but circumstances prevented me from doing so. But I'm back now, so hopefully we can get a few more videos up. So today, as you can read from the title, I'm going to be talking about the legend of Scotia, the Egyptian Queen of Britannia. So, who was this mysterious Scotia? Well, there is several different theories upon this. Princess Scotia was undoubtedly the daughter of a great pharaoh, the name of which is debated, and there is in fact rumours that she may have in fact been Tutankhamun's oldest sister, which is why Tutankhamun's image is appearing here. There are, as I said, multiple different theories, Tutankhamun only being the most recent one, and I will come on to why this is the most recent theory later on in the video. So, Scotia's story begins, quite obviously, in ancient Egypt. She was the oldest daughter of the pharaoh at the time. The name of this pharaoh is heavily debated. No one is quite sure which pharaoh it was, or even if Scotia did exist. The country at the time of Scotia's birth was said to be unstable. Egypt wasn't particularly thriving at the time. There was a lot of internal and external strife going on. So, highly unusually for Egyptian royalty, Scotia did not marry her oldest brother, but was instead married to a foreign man. The exact details of this man are heavily debated. Some stories say that he was Greek, other stories say that he was from a completely different country altogether. So, Scotia herself, as you can imagine, was eventually forced to flee from ancient Egypt due to the strife that was going on. And in doing so, she eventually found herself probably in a very unlikely place. So where exactly did Scotia flee to? Well, I'll come on to that in just a second. And this bust or statue that you're seeing just now is in fact meant to be what Scotia looked like. How accurate it is, I honestly have no idea. I don't really think anybody alive to this day could accurately tell you how historically accurate the statue is to what Scotia may have looked like. Well, as if the title wasn't a dead giveaway, this is where Scotia ended up, my own homeland of the United Kingdom. And this is why she often gets referred to as the mother of Scots. In fact, this is where Scotland's name comes from, supposedly from the word Scotia. And I will move on to this in just a second. Okay, so this next image shows a map of the Mediterranean Sea, including the United Kingdom, and the red line I actually drew myself. It's a little shoddy, I do apologise, but this is showing, in my own opinion, the potential route that Scotia may have taken in order to get to the United Kingdom, because I highly doubt that in the ships that they had she would have tried crossing right across the Mediterranean, and obviously the only way to actually get to the United Kingdom from the Mediterranean would be by bypassing Gibraltar. I have also drawn, as you can see, a line going from Scotland to Ireland, and I'll cover that in just a second. If you are hearing moving around and such in the background, that's just because my dog walked into the room. Yes, I have adopted a rescue dog, and do not worry, he will be appearing on my channel at some point later. So, as I said, Scotia eventually ended up in Scotland, according to the story, but was forced to flee to Ireland. Now, when she was in Scotland, she encountered what was referred to at the time as the Empire of the Picts. Now, the Pictish warriors were partially the natives of Scotland. They were fearsome barbarian warriors that really did not take kindly to outsiders or to anyone, really. As you could expect from Celtic-like clans, they not only fought each other, but pretty much everybody else too. The Picts, obviously not taking kindly to this supposed foreign influence arriving on their shores, decided to try and attack Scotia, either to capture or kill her. In the end, unable to properly defend themselves, Scotia's retinue was forced to flee to Ireland. They found that the Irish natives, or the Irish Celts, were significantly more friendly than the Picts were. They were a bit more accepting of her, and over time her influence spread, and she actually became a queen, if you will, with more and more people flocking to her. So eventually she went from being a beloved foreign woman, an exotic woman arriving in Ireland, to in fact a conqueror. Now, you'll see here that we've got an image showing the UK split into the Pictish Empire, the Britons, which were several different clans, mostly inhabiting England, and the Green, which are the Scots. Now, everybody says that the Scots are Scottish, but in fact, the Kingdom of the Scots, or Scotie, as they're originally known, was Scotia's people, or Scotia's British people. This is in fact where, as I already said, the name Scots or Scotland comes from Scotia's own name. So once Scotia had spread her influence all across Ireland and actually more or less conquered the country, she then decided to get her revenge on the Picts and launched an invasion of Scotland, hence taking some of the areas in West Scotland, eventually leading to the Kingdom of the Scots. Of course, Scotia's golden age eventually ended, as did her reign, and she herself is said to be buried in Ireland, at this wee southern point here. There is a typical sort of hiking walk that you can go on to visit the area marked as Scotia's grave. Now, whether or not this is actually her grave, I honestly do not know, but this is the site that it's been marked as. So I've gone over pretty quickly the story of Scotia. Now we're going to look at, is there actually any evidence that Scotia even existed at all? Well, surprisingly enough, there actually could very well be some evidence. So the first piece of evidence I'll bring to you is your attention here. Now, this is a hill in Ireland, and it's called Tara. Now, what they found here at Tara Hill was a skeleton, and they believe the skeleton to be a man, and in fact a prince, because he was found bearing many, luxuries of the time, as you will. Now, the reason why the Tara skeleton is associated with Scotia and Egypt is because he was found with a necklace, and in this necklace was a set of beads. These beads were in fact not native to the UK, but to Egypt. When analysed, they found that these beads were an exact match of the ones found on Tutankhamun's mask. This eventually led to the story that Scotia may in fact have been connected to Tutankhamun, in fact maybe even his older sister. When they dated the beads and the skeleton, they found it to be around 1350, which was around the same time as Tutankhamun's reign. So, hopefully you found that interesting, and maybe that's enough to convince you, maybe it's not. When this skeleton was found was 1955, I believe. If you would like to read more upon the skeleton, there are plenty of sites on the internet that could lead you to more information should you wish to read up upon it. So the second piece of evidence I have for you is here, believe it or not, in Yorkshire in England. So what a group of archaeologists and, believe it or not, farmers found were the remains of what initially was believed to be a Viking longboat. Several years later, the samples were reanalyzed because archaeologists believed that the design of, or rather the remains, did not match Viking longboat designs. They were in fact closer to Egyptian designs. When they were able to actually use dating technology and thus dated the samples, they found it again to be around 1350, the same time as Tutankhamun's reign. Obviously, a group of people then put two and two together and said that the ship and the tower skeleton were both evidence of Scotia's influence in the UK. Whether or not this is pure speculation or true is highly up for debate. Perhaps you yourself have your own opinion of this and would like to mention in the comment section. So, I've now given you two pieces of information which are used to try and support Scotia's evidence. Now, I've labelled this next section as theory evidence, solely because it's not true hard evidence, but they are theories that are being presented to try and explain Scotia's influence on the UK. So, ladies and gentlemen, the image that you're seeing here before you is one of the famous Pictish stones. This is a collection of, as you can guess, stonework, which is very famous for its art and architectural purposes. Often they depict Pictish society in terms of warfare, but not always. Now, the reason why I've shown Pictish influences here is because of several things, really. The bulk of the Pictish army, as we know from the Romans, because they recorded most of their battle history, is that the Picts always seemed to go into battle naked, and they would just about always have wild hair. However, their leaders would always ride in on horseback, and they would always have well-groomed hair and beards, sometimes even adorned with jewellery, and they would almost always be adorned with silver-coloured scale tunics. When I say scale, I mean scale armour, so overlapping sheets or plates, or even sort of little circles and squares, if you will. Now, while Celtic society and Pictish society do depict their leaders being well groomed, you could think of this as unusual for the barbarian world. So some theories state that Scotia's influence could be seen here, that the Egyptian refugees may have brought this sense of being well groomed with them. The scale tunics, however, are a much more easy one to identify. This is most certainly not native British culture. Barbarians of the time did not often wear armour. Barbarians wearing armour is mostly associated with Vikings, which came significantly later. So, as you can imagine, a bit unusual. So where did these scale tunics come from? Well, some say that it is in fact again Scotia's influence, because Egyptians and Hittites were very well known for wearing, or rather their leaders and commanders were well known for wearing scale armour themselves. I've heard one rumour saying that potentially the Chinese may have had some sort of influence here, coming along the Silk Road. That is highly unlikely, but again, it is one theory that I'm putting out there. Another theory that I've heard is that the scale tunic design may have even come from Atlantis, but again, this is highly unlikely. One other theory I could talk about here is, if you remember my story about the Morrigan, well, the clan of gods that were primarily worshipped within Celtic Ireland was the Tuathra de Danann, and many people actually believe that Scotia and her Egyptian refugees could in fact be the models of the Tuathra de Danann. So you never know. There is that one theory there, which is possibly quite likely. Again, I do apologise for that background noise. That was my dog trying to sell himself. So, ladies and gentlemen, I do hope you enjoyed me presenting some of the theories there. If you have your own, then please do feel free to share them, because I'd be quite interested to hear that myself. So, ladies and gentlemen, thus ends the legend of Princess Scotia, the Egyptian Queen of Britannia. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening. I do hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, then please remember to like and subscribe for more lore, myths, legends, and stories. I would also like to take this time to thank all 22 of my subscribers currently. Thank you for staying with me for so long, even though I've been kind of on and off a bit lately. I know it's taken me a while to get videos up, and I apologise for that. Hopefully it won't be so long until the next one. So for now, this will be my last video on ancient Egypt, though I will likely come back to it in the near future. At some point, because I was in Spain again not that long ago, and once again visited Teva Castle, I will probably do a part 2 on the castle, showing the actual inner keep this time, rather than the outer sort of edges and outer walls of this citadel. But if I do that video, then I will go more into the actual sort of campaign of Moorish Granada rather than just the Battle of Teba. So the next sort of series I will be focusing on is probably going to be in ancient Persia. So this is pre-Muslim Persia and pre-Islam Persia. I may also do a couple of Norse videos if anyone would like me to start doing that series as well, because I have promised myself that I would eventually do Norse mythology, but I guess now that Egypt is done, it could be just as good a time to do it as any, especially with the new God of War game not long being out, and that very much having been influenced by Norse mythology. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I will end the video here. Again, I do hope you enjoyed, and once again, thank you very much to my 22 subscribers. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Shenlong Pendragon. Until next time, remember, knowledge is power.